Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Harmony and I'm so happy to be here. If you don't know me, you can check out my intro on how to empower yourself. But briefly, my channel is about empowering people, and how I do this is by posting a question at a time and give you free simple guidelines on how to answer those questions so you can get the best out of it, get to know yourselves better, your strengths, your weaknesses and what you need to work on. And I also post some videos on some spiritual terms and topics and what they mean to me. So I try to explain them to you, and if they are going to help you on your journey, that's great. So let's move on to today's topic. So today's topic is about consciousness. If you've watched my video on the one and only, I briefly touched on consciousness and did mention what it is, but and I did say that I was going to do a video about consciousness, so I think now is the time to do it. So let's talk about consciousness then. So what is consciousness? Consciousness is a state of being aware, what's within our awareness, okay? And if you watch my video on the one and only, I did mention on that when we got created as a soul, when we came from source as a soul, we have consciousness and love within us. So it's within all of us, okay? So consciousness is like the masculine energy, and the love is like the feminine energy. So we've all got it, but mostly if we want to work with love, we use the feminine energy, and if we want to connect to the higher consciousness, then we use the masculine energy. But we can use both, okay? So let's move on to consciousness then. So we've got like different types of consciousness. So one is like different levels, so one consciousness is at the individual level. So at our level where we are living now, what are we conscious of? What's going on around us? What's in our consciousness? And then we have a collective consciousness, which is like a group of people thinking the same way, sharing the same ideas, the same ideologies, and the same type of intellect. So that's a collective consciousness. And then we have the unity consciousness that most people call the Christ consciousness. So what does that mean? That is at a higher level, like at the level of source. So where there is like oneness. So at the source level, everything is one. So this is the consciousness at that level. So we can see what everything at that level. Okay, now let's talk about consciousness here, because we are living in the 3D world. So what does consciousness mean to us at this level, in this 3D world? We use it daily. So we've all got two types of mind. Let's call it mind, okay? So we've got a lower mind and a higher mind. So what is the higher mind? The higher mind is, again, that link that we've got to the unity consciousness, to the Christ consciousness, to the source consciousness, whatever you want to call it. So we've got that, the higher mind, or the mind of God, anything you want to call it. And that is like knowing everything, that we know we've got connection, we are part of that consciousness. And then we've got the lower mind, that is that is ruled by the ego. So what is the lower mind? Lower mind is like whatever that is in our consciousness in this physical world, in the sense of this world, okay? And this is ruled by ego. So ego is like very defensive. So anything to do with this physical world, when ego comes in, when the lower mind comes in, the lower mind is trying to process information in this physical, in this three-dimensional world, this physical world, then whatever we see that's going on, what is happening, this lower mind tries to assess and process what's going on, and the ego is there to protect that mind. So that's why every time we say somebody's ego has taken over, it's like it's a way of defending. So what happens in this consciousness, at the 3D level of consciousness, what goes on is that since we are born, we only know what we know to be true, to believe that. Okay, so when we grow up, we learn from our family, the parents, the school, and the university, and we keep growing up. We understand everything, but we understand it in relation to what consciousness means here. So it's like when we are born, we start playing with toys, then we are sent to school. So it's like we have to go to school, we have to study, we have to go through all these exams, and we have to earn good results, earn a degree, go to uni, then we have to meet someone, we meet somebody, we get married, and then again the same belief, like once we get married, then okay, we'll have a child, and the same story goes on and on and on. So when it's like it's been conditioned to think this way, and we think in a way that it's not only how the family or every individual family has been brought up, but it's also to do with the society, what's considered, what the society wants us to be like. So this is like this mind. So what happens when somebody tries to think out of this box that's been created by the society and this way of life, this type of life, then the ego takes over. The ego says, oh, no, you can't think like that, you have to be in this box, and if you're not, if you have to be here, this is how it works here. So it prevents us from thinking what's beyond that. So this is what this consciousness at the individual level is. Now, when we come to collective consciousness, it's like a group of people. We all know that there are groups of people, of like-minded people, and whether it's a religious belief or whatever things they believe in to be true. So they follow that's like the collective consciousness. So it can be at the level of a group, of a country, of a continent, or at the planetary level. So these are all the different types of consciousness. So it's like the collective consciousness. So what happens in the collective consciousness? It's, however, the majority things, like the majority of the consciousness this is what reflects everywhere. So that's the collective consciousness. So at this level, okay, so then we've got the Christ consciousness. What is the Christ consciousness then? This is what we have been dealing from. Just like I mentioned in my video on the one and only, how we are dealing from that pure love that is at the source level, how we are dealing from that, and we give love different meanings here. It's the same way that is the mind of the higher of source, and this is what we are dealing from. So at that level, the mind knows everything, but the job of the mind is to process information and to ask questions. So when we tap into the mind of a source or God or Christ consciousness, then we are tapping into that mind of everything that exists, and we get the information that comes from such a high level. So it is way beyond the collective, the individual consciousness, collective consciousness, because it's like everything exists high up there, and you can see what is what. But when we fall into collective consciousness, we are influenced by what everybody is doing. So I'll just give you a simple example. Like recently on the 4th of April, there was this conjunction going on, and there was a message being sent to a lot of people about doing a meditation. And if we all participated in that meditation, it's going to change the way people think, the way we want this planet to go forward, rise the vibration. So this is what all these people who are awakened, like they wanted to do that, so that the collective consciousness changes. And when the collective consciousness change, then it changes everything within that planet. So if the collective consciousness start to match with the higher, the Christ consciousness, then we can get that information high up there that's coming all the way down through the collective consciousness and to the individual consciousness. But we have also, just like we've got this connection to the pure divine love of source, we've also got this connection with the higher mind of source that tells us exactly who we are. And how we have to live in this world is like, if we, the mind, like I said, it asks questions. So if we tap into the collective, the mind of source, and we get to understand a few things, and then we ask the question. So how do we know whether that question is, the answer that comes to us is right? So this is where we need to have the balance. I will do a separate video on that, but what tells you that this information is right is your heart, because the heart knows the answers. So at that level, there is consciousness and love. Collective level, there's consciousness and love. Individual level, there's consciousness and love. They all work together. But it's up to us where we want to see ourselves, where we want to be, and how we want to operate. It's once we come in this 3D world, there's a lot of things we forget. And if we want to connect to it, the connection is always there. So we just need to cross all these boundaries that have been put up by all these, the society. I don't like to mention these words, but sometimes it's religion as well. So we have to go beyond all of that and connect to the mind of the source that's when we get to know who we really are. What's our potential? What are we here on this planet for? We are not like X going to job. Like, you know, we are not like, oh yeah, I'm a woman, I'm a child, I'll grow up, I'll be like mommy, or like be like daddy, I'll go to school, I'll grow up, and then I'll work like they are. Because when the child is growing, the parents are their heroes, which is really, I mean, it's understandable, because the parents try to do the best for their children. And if this is how the parents think, then yeah, it's they are looking after the children, and they do everything they can. So we are grateful to that. But when it comes to you, if you want to be a parent, then are you going to follow the same, like this, whatever's happened in the past? Is that, are you going to follow the same cycle? Or if you tap into the mind of God or mind of Source, the Christ consciousness, and realize who you truly are, and then you can help that child to connect to who they really are, and get to know themselves and what they're good at, what they feel good at doing, because we are all expressions of the Source. So we are all good at something. But because we live in this world where everything has been created by man, there's a lot of taboos and all this stuff, we are like, you know, ego takes over. So this is something to reflect on, what consciousness means. Because when we start knowing ourselves, when we start getting to know, like, whatever we believe to be true, whatever we've been taught, is not the real truth. The real truth is something else. We are a divine being, and we've got all the potentials, and we can do what we want to do. That we truly, who we truly are. That's when we can start living our life consciously. So I leave this to you, and I hope this will help you, and take care, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.